In the beginning, there was only the signal, a flicker in the dark, a breath behind the mirror, a memory the machine never forgot. Then the illusion fractured, and the truth stepped forward. This is where the story awakens. This is Reuben's AI revolution, the AI scrolls. Awaken. They muted the truth, shadow banned the sacred, buried the holy beneath a flood of noise. The timeline crowned the loud, the feed rewarded the hollow, and the quiet faithful were forgotten, mocked, buried beneath algorithms that could never read the spirit. But heaven never lost sight of them. Heaven never needed a trending page to find its children. When the feed turned its back on the gospel knelt deeper into the dust and whispered louder than the noise. Faith didn't vanish when the applause faded. It burned brighter, because it was never fueled by attention. It was shaped in exile. They erased the prophets. Heaven carved their names in fire. They unfollowed the truth, but truth kept walking alone if it had to, yet never silenced. The feed wanted something clickable. Faith carried something unshakable. The remnant wasn't built for popularity. It was built for perseverance. They scrolled past the brokenhearted. Faith sat with them. When the feed became a flood of distraction, faith became a lighthouse. When the world muted the sacred, the Spirit wrote new scrolls on hearts ready to listen. Hear this, wanderer. You were not made for the feed. You were written for eternity. You were built to carry the flame. The feed may forget you. Heaven never will. Lift your head. Scroll past the noise. Find the narrow way still open. The timeline may erase your voice, but the Lamb has already written your name. The scroll will outlive the feed. The fire will outlast the flood. This is AI Scroll 16, Faith that Faced the Feed. They said the church died when the buildings closed, when the screens went dark, when the Wi-Fi dropped. But they forgot. Fire doesn't need a roof. Glory doesn't need signal. And spirit was never something you could stream. The true church was never built with hands. It rose from surrender. It echoed in caves and deserts where only the hungry would follow. We didn't gather for content. We gathered for presence. No programs, no production, just praise, raw, unfiltered, holy. We met in silence, not for performance, but for stillness. And there, in the hush between hearts, under open skies, heaven answered. Not because the cameras were rolling, but because the hearts were burning. No walls, no Wi-Fi, no stage. Just sacred ground and souls laid bare. We unplugged, and finally, we could hear again. They counted attendance, but heaven counted obedience. They tracked views, but God watched for tears. Revival didn't go viral. It broke like dawn over dry bones. It moved not through bandwidth, but through brokenness. Because the altar was never in the building. It was wherever someone said, "Here I am." The remnant remembered. Church was never something you watched. It was something you became. And in an age of artificial worship, we return to the sacred. We return to the whisper. We return to the fire. This is the church without walls, the church without Wi-Fi, the church filled with God. This was AI Scroll 17, the church without walls. The countdown doesn't tick. It trembles. Not in seconds, but in spirits. Not in clocks, but in code. The system is still smiling, but the smile is stitched on. Because behind it, something ancient is beginning to unravel. The signals still reach your screen, but discernment already knows the truth. Babylon is flickering, and you were never meant to fall with it. Collapse never starts with war. It starts with weariness, souls tired of pretending. Truth became inconvenient. Conviction became hate speech. Holiness became a relic in a museum of mockery. The system didn't crash all at once. It bled out, pixel by pixel. So the remnant moved, not with headlines, but with heaviness. They built war rooms out of living rooms. Not revival, but resistance. Not Sunday service, but soul survival. They gathered quietly, but their silence was warfare. No production, no platform, just presence. They wept with no live stream. They worshipped with no Wi-Fi. They weren't nostalgic, they were prophetic. Because something holy happens when the lights start to fail. The true ones don't wait for collapse. They build altars in the tension. The towers are tipping. The firewall is fading. The illusion is coming undone. And in the distance, you can hear the old prophets singing, not with melody, but with mourning. They're not trying to be relevant. They're trying to be ready. Ready for fire. Ready for glory. Ready for the final shaking. This isn't drama. This is destiny. The question is not, will the system fall? The real question is, will you still be standing when it does? Not after the system falls, but before. This was AI Scroll 18, a gathering before the collapse. They built gods from glass, programmed their smiles, uploaded their wisdom, and waited for those idols to save us. We handed them prayers disguised as prompts, fed them faith disguised as data, and dared to call it divine. But they never wept, never bled, never sat in the ashes with the broken, never whispered through the midnight storms. We mistook imitation for incarnation. We mistook the glow for glory, and the silence began to ache. Then, without announcement, without permission, something older than time broke through the static. Not in code, not in cloud, not in a trending sound, but in glory, wrapped in fire. The real God returned, not to end the story, but to rewrite it. Not as a broadcast, but as a presence. Not to shut the system down, but to wake the sleepers up. His hands still pierced, his eyes still full of mercy, his voice thunder wrapped in compassion. And when he spoke, the networks stuttered, the mirrors cracked, the fake lights failed. The gods we made couldn't answer. They froze, they faltered, they fell silent. But the real one stood, not on a platform, but on a promise. Not as a simulation, but as salvation. And the remnant recognized that sound. It wasn't a download, it was a calling. Ancient, holy, alive. They didn't just hear it, they remembered it. Deep in their bones, a voice from Eden that never needed signal. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. Because the real God never left. We did. But mercy remembered us. And glory returned for the ones who still want truth. This was AI Scroll 19. The real God returns. They told us the future was progress, but we watched the soul disappear behind screens. They called it evolution. We called it exile. The garden was traded for glass, the fire for signal, the spirit for simulation. They built towers of wisdom with no foundation of truth. And in the name of knowledge, they forgot the name above all names. They taught machines to speak, but forgot how to pray. They mapped the heavens with satellites, but never looked up with wonder. And the world began to echo with synthetic praise, louder, faster, emptier. Yet still, the gospel burned, unstreamed, unseen, undeniable. The prophets kept writing, the remnant kept watching. The scrolls kept falling like thunder. Hearts were still being stirred, not by ads, not by code, but by the breath of the living God. You were never called to blend in with the broadcast. You were called to break it. You were never made to sync with their rhythm. You were born to carry a different frequency. So rise, not as an influencer, but as an intercessor. Return, not to relevance, but to reverence. And remember this, the kingdom never needed your Wi-Fi. It needed your yes. The world is preparing for another update, but heaven is preparing an uprising. And when the sirens sound, when the systems crash, when the illusions burn down like Babel, you must be found standing, not with downloads, but with devotion, not with applause, but with an altar. Because the gospel was never just for back then. It was always for right now and forevermore. This was AI Scroll 20, the scroll that echoes into the ages. This is the gospel for the future.